maybe even uncomfortable. You don't have to thank me. I just did what anyone should have done. Emily looked between them. Daddy's a hero, she said proudly. Jack chuckled. Heroes make mistakes, kiddo. I just reacted. Sarah smiled, warmth in her eyes. Well, your reaction was perfect. They talked for a few minutes, mostly small things, work, weather, the town's gossip. But underneath, Sarah felt something shifting. She'd lived in this town for 5 years and never met anyone quite like him. When the check came, Jack reached for it automatically. Oh no, Sarah protested. You already saved me. You're not paying for my dinner too. Jack smirked. Consider it part of the rescue package. Emily giggled again. You should have pancakes too. Sarah laughed, shaking her head. You're very persuasive, young lady. So she stayed. They ate pancakes, talked, and for the first time that night, Sarah felt safe, really safe. She even told them about her work at the hospital, the long hours, the difficult nights. Jack listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer empty sympathy, just listened, like someone who understood exhaustion at its core. When they finished, Jack helped Emily with her coat and walked Sarah to her car. The rain had stopped completely, and the cool air smelled like wet asphalt and fresh beginnings. Most people wouldn't have stepped in like that, she said quietly. Jack looked out at the empty street. Most people haven't been trained to notice danger before it starts. He hesitated, then nodded. 10 years, enlisted right out of high school, did a few deployments overseas, got out when Emily's mom got sick. He nodded once. She was stronger than I'll ever be. Emily was 2 when she passed, been just us since then. For a moment they stood in silence, the hum of the diner lights fading behind them. Sarah smiled faintly. She'd be proud of you. Jack looked at her, his usually guarded eyes softening. Thanks, I hope so. She hesitated, then took a small step closer. If you ever need a night off from saving the world, maybe you and Emily could come by the hospital fair next weekend. They're doing games for kids. She'd love it. Jack smiled, a rare, real smile. We might just do that. The hospital fair was crowded with families. Emily ran from booth to booth, face painted like a butterfly, clutching a giant pink balloon. Sarah spotted Jack watching her from a distance, hands in his jacket pockets, looking both out of place and perfectly at home. Over the next few weeks, their paths kept crossing. Coffee at the diner, short talks outside the hospital, small-town coincidences that didn't feel accidental anymore. Sarah began to see the man behind the quiet composure, the sleepless nights. The way he froze when fireworks went off in the distance, the haunted look he tried to hide when Emily wasn't watching. One evening, they sat on a park bench while Emily played on the swings. The sunset painted the sky in gold and violet streaks. Do you ever miss it? Sarah asked. The Navy? He thought for a long moment. Sometimes, the structure, the brotherhood, the purpose. Jack smiled faintly. Danger's never the hard part. It's what it takes from you that's hard. She nodded, understanding more than she expected to. You didn't just protect me that night, Jack. You reminded me that good people still exist. He looked at her then, really looked, and for the first time, the distance in his eyes faded. The story from that night had spread far beyond Oak Ridge. The local newspaper headline read, Single dad, former Navy officer, stops assault at diner, 15 seconds of courage. Jack avoided the attention. He didn't want the spotlight. But one morning, Emily came home from school waving a crumpled paper. Daddy, guess what? My teacher said you're a hero. He smiled, kneeling to her level. You know what makes someone a hero? Doing the right thing even when no one's watching. He hugged her tightly, like we both try to do every... Miller's Diner hadn't changed much. The same flickering neon, the same smell of coffee and apple pie. But one thing was new. 3 people now sat in that corner booth instead of 2. Sarah poured syrup over Emily's pancakes while Jack sipped his coffee. Stars again? Sarah teased. Jack grinned. Tradition. Emily looked between them, grinning wide. Can we have pancakes for dinner forever? They laughed. And as rain began to fall again outside, Jack glanced at the door, the same door he'd watched that night a year ago. The instincts were still there, sharp as ever. But for once, they weren't born of fear. They were born of gratitude, of love, of peace. Because sometimes life gives you a moment that changes everything, a moment where courage meets chance, and two strangers find the beginning of something worth fighting for. The neon sign of Miller's Diner buzzed faintly in the drizzle, its red glow spilling across the cracked parking lot. Inside, the hum of conversation mingled with the clatter of dishes and the low rhythm of an old jukebox playing country tunes that had outlived their singers. At the far corner booth sat Jack Reynolds and his 8-year-old daughter Emily. Jack liked that booth. It let him face the door. Old habit, a veteran's habit. His hands wrapped around a chipped mug of black coffee, while Emily colored on a napkin with 3 crayons scavenged from the waitress's pocket. "Daddy," she said without looking up, "can we get pancakes for dinner again?" Jack smirked. "Pancakes for dinner? You're going to start a revolution in this town." She looked up, eyes wide, pleading. He sighed theatrically. "All right, but you have to eat the strawberries this time." Emily grinned, flashing the gap where her front tooth had been. The simple sound of her laughter was everything Jack needed to remind himself why he'd traded the roar of the ocean and the command deck for this quiet town in upstate New York. The bell over the door jingled, letting in a gust of wet air. A woman hurried in, shaking out her umbrella. Her hair was damp, her scrubs clung to her arms. She looked tired, no, drained. "Evening, Sarah," called the waitress. "Hey, Carol," the woman replied weakly. She slid into the booth beside the window, rubbing her temples. Sarah Collins, Jack remembered. He'd seen her at the diner before, always late, always alone, always exhausted. She worked at the county hospital he'd overheard once. Emily leaned toward him. She looked sad. Jack followed his daughter's gaze. Sarah's eyes were unfocused, staring through the rain-streaked glass, as if she could will herself home by looking hard enough. "She's just tired, kiddo," he murmured. "Nurses work long hours." The moment was broken by another jingle of the door. 2 men stumbled inside, laughing too loudly for the small space. Their leather jackets were slick with rain, their boots heavy. They carried the smell of whiskey and trouble. Jack's gaze hardened automatically. The first one, tall, buzz-cut, maybe late 20s, scanned the diner like it was a challenge. The second, shorter but thicker, had the restless energy of someone who wanted to start a fight, just to feel alive. "Evening, fellas," Carol said, trying to keep her tone light. The tall one winked. "2 coffees, maybe something stronger if you've got it." Carol smiled tightly. "Just coffee here." They took stools at the counter, but kept glancing towards Sarah's booth. Jack noticed. He noticed everything, their jittery hands, the tension in their shoulders, the way they whispered and snickered behind her back. Like when you're watching a movie and the bad guy's about to do something mean. "Just drink your milkshake." But he couldn't shake the feeling crawling up his spine. Years of military service had sharpened an instinct that never quite turned off. Situational awareness, they'd called it in the Navy. Out here, it just felt like paranoia, until it didn't. The taller man slid off his stool and swaggered towards Sarah's booth. "Hey there, pretty lady. You sitting all by yourself?" Sarah didn't look up. "Just waiting for my food." The shorter one followed, grin spreading across his unshaven face. "We could keep you company. Rainy night like this gets lonely." "I'm fine, thanks," she said quickly. Jack's jaw tightened. The taller one leaned on the table too close. "Come on, sweetheart, don't be rude." She tried to stand, but the shorter one blocked her path. "Where you going? We just got here." The diner went quiet. Carol froze behind the counter. An old couple by the window pretended not to notice. Emily's small voice broke the silence. "Daddy?" He turned to her, calm but serious. "Stay right here, don't move, understand?" Her eyes widened, but she nodded. Jack stood up, 6'2", built like someone who still woke up at 5 a.m. to do push-ups out of habit. He walked toward the booth, slow, deliberate. His boots made almost no sound on the linoleum. "Evening," he said evenly. "You should let the lady eat her dinner." The tall man looked him up and down. "Who asked you, pal?" Jack's voice stayed level. "I'm asking you polite once." The man sneered. "You her boyfriend or something?" Jack didn't blink. "Doesn't matter. Step away." The second man chuckled. "Or what?" Jack's eyes narrowed, calculating. Or you'll regret finding out. That was all it took. The tall one pushed off the table and shoved Jack's chest. Big talk. Time slowed. Years of muscle memory took over. Jack sidestepped, grabbed the man's wrist, twisted it counterclockwise, and pulled. The man's body followed, momentum crashing him into the table's edge. Dishes shattered. Before the first could react, Jack pivoted, striking open-handed at the man's sternum. A perfect Navy self-defense maneuver. The impact sent him sprawling back onto the floor. 15 seconds, that's all it took. The diner fell silent, except for the groans of the two men, trying to breathe through the pain. Jack straightened, breathing steady. He checked Sarah first. You all right? She nodded shakily. Yes, thank you. Carol hurried from behind the counter, phone already in hand. Police are on their way. Jack turned toward Emily's booth. She was watching with wide eyes, milkshake straw frozen halfway to her mouth. He gave her a small nod and a smile that said, "It's okay now." The taller man tried to push himself up. Jack crouched beside him, voice low but firm. "Stay down. You don't want round two." The man glared, but something in Jack's tone, quiet authority, the kind that came from years of command, kept him on the floor. A minute later, red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Officers burst in, taking control. Jack stepped back, hands raised slightly. "They assaulted her," he said simply. "I stopped it." One officer recognized him. "Jack Reynolds? Thought that was you." Jack nodded once. The officer turned to his partner. "Guy's ex-Navy, you can take his word." As the attackers were hauled out, Sarah sat trembling, still trying to process what had happened. She looked at Jack, at the calmness in his eyes, the way his hands didn't shake. "How did you do that?" she whispered. He hesitated, glancing at Emily, now coloring again, pretending nothing had happened. "Old training," he said finally. And with that, he went back to his booth, picked up his coffee, and took a slow sip as if nothing had interrupted their quiet evening. Emily smiled. "Daddy, can we still get pancakes?" Jack chuckled, a hint of relief breaking through his steady voice. "Yeah, kiddo. We earned 'em tonight." Outside, rain kept falling, washing the neon red across the windows like spilled light. Inside, for the first time that night, everyone could breathe again, thanks to a single dad whose instincts never left the battlefield, even in a small-town diner. By the time the police cars pulled away from Miller's diner, the rain had eased to a mist. Red and blue lights reflected off the puddles, then vanished into the night. Inside, the tension slowly dissolved, replaced by hushed voices and nervous laughter. Sarah sat still in her booth, her untouched coffee now cold. Her hands trembled slightly. She looked across the diner at Jack Reynolds, who was calmly cutting a pancake for his daughter, as if what had just happened were nothing more than a spilled drink. Emily giggled. "Daddy, you cut them like little stars." Jack smiled, his voice soft. "Stars taste better, trust me." Sarah couldn't help but smile faintly. How could someone who moved like a storm a few minutes ago now seem so peaceful, so normal? Carol, the waitress, refilled Sarah's cup and whispered, "You're lucky he was here. Jack's a good man, quiet, keeps to himself, but he's not someone you want to mess with." Sarah nodded slowly. "Who is he, really?" Carol lowered her voice. "Used to be Navy. I think Special Operations or something like that. Came back here after his wife passed. Raises his little girl on his own. Works construction now." Sarah's gaze drifted back to Jack. The way he leaned in to listen to Emily, the care in his movements, it didn't match the image of a soldier. It was something gentler. When she finally found her courage, she stood and approached his booth. "Hey," she said softly. Jack looked up. "Hey, I just wanted to thank you again. I don't even know what would have happened if you hadn't been here." He shrugged lightly. "Probably nothing I couldn't handle." "I'm serious," she insisted. "You saved me." Jack's eyes flickered, embarrassed.